Right now, at this very moment, you're hallucinating. I know that might sound strange, but stay with me for just a moment. The voice you're hearing isn't really my voice, it's an hallucination your brain is creating from air pressure waves or electrical signals. The device you're listening through, you're not actually seeing or feeling it directly. The room around you, the sensation of wherever you're resting, even your sense of being you, all of it is a magnificent hallucination, a reality entirely constructed by 3 pounds of tissue inside your skull. And the most beautiful part, your brain is so extraordinarily good at this that you never even notice you're doing it. Welcome to Sleep About Science. I'm so glad you're here with me tonight. Or perhaps it's morning where you are. Or maybe you're listening in that quiet afternoon lull when the world seems to slow down just a bit. Wherever you are in the world, whatever time zone cradles you right now, thank you for choosing to spend this time with me, exploring one of the most extraordinary mysteries we carry with us every moment of our lives: how your brain creates the reality you experience. Before we begin our journey tonight, I want you to know that if you haven't already, you might want to consider subscribing to the channel so you never miss one of these gentle explorations into the wonders of science. And please, make yourself comfortable. Pull up those blankets if you have them. Adjust your pillow just right. Let your body find that perfect position where every muscle can begin to release its hold on the day. Because tonight, we're going to explore something remarkable, something that's happening inside your head right at this very moment, even as you settle in to listen to my voice. I should mention, as I always do, that what we'll discuss tonight is purely educational, a bedtime story woven from the threads of neuroscience and psychology. It's not medical advice, and if you have concerns about your perception or cognitive health, please do speak with a qualified healthcare professional. But for tonight, for these next minutes or hours, however long you stay with me, we're simply going to marvel together at the incredible machinery of consciousness that you carry between your ears. And here's something I want you to know from the very beginning. If you fall asleep during our exploration tonight, that's perfectly wonderful. In fact, it might even be poetically appropriate, because as you drift off to sleep, your brain will continue creating realities in your dreams, painting entire worlds from nothing but neural firing patterns and remembered experiences. So please, feel no pressure to stay awake. Let my voice be a gentle current that carries you wherever you need to go, whether that's into deep contemplation or into peaceful sleep. Now, as you're lying there, or sitting comfortably, or perhaps walking with earbuds in, I want you to consider something quietly astonishing. Everything you're experiencing right now, the sound of my voice, the feeling of fabric against your skin, the soft glow of light through your eyelids if they're closed, or the shapes and colors if they're open. None of it exists in the way you think it does. What you're experiencing is not the world itself, but rather an elaborate construction, a detailed simulation created by roughly 3 pounds of tissue inside your skull. Your brain, right now, is creating your reality, and it's doing it so seamlessly, so convincingly, that you rarely stop to question whether what you perceive is actually what's out there. Let's start with something simple, something happening right at this moment: the sound of my voice. What you're experiencing as my voice isn't actually my voice at all. It's your brain's interpretation of pressure waves moving through the air, or electromagnetic signals if you're listening through speakers or headphones. These waves cause tiny movements in your eardrum, which cause even tinier bones in your middle ear to vibrate, which create waves in the fluid of your inner ear, which bend microscopic hair cells, which trigger electrical signals, which travel along your auditory nerve to your brain. And only then, only after this remarkable chain of physical transformations, does your brain construct what you experience as sound. But here's where it gets even more fascinating. Your brain doesn't just passively receive these signals, it actively predicts what it expects to hear, filling in gaps, smoothing over imperfections, creating continuity where none might exist. If you're listening in a noisy environment, your brain is right now performing incredibly complex calculations to separate my voice from background noise, using patterns it has learned over your entire lifetime about what human speech sounds like, about the rhythm and cadence of English, about the kinds of sounds that belong together and those that don't. Picture this. Scientists have done experiments where they place sentences with words missing or replaced with coughs or other sounds, and people often don't even notice. Their brains simply fill in what should be there, creating the experience of hearing words that were never actually spoken. Your reality, the one you're experiencing right now, is part perception and part prediction, part what's there and part what your brain expects to be there. And this is just the beginning of our journey tonight, because everything, and I mean everything you experience, is like this. The colors you see aren't properties of objects in the world, they're creations of your brain. The solidness you feel when you touch something isn't the thing itself, but your brain's interpretation of electrical signals from pressure receptors in your skin. The passage of time you're experiencing right now, the sense that moments are flowing from future through present into past, the two is a construction of your neural networks. Let me take you deeper into this gentle rabbit hole. Think about color for a moment. We tend to think of color as a property of things. The sky is blue, grass is green, roses are red. But color doesn't exist outside of conscious experience. What exists are different wavelengths of electromagnetic radiation. Some of these wavelengths, a tiny slice of the entire electromagnetic spectrum, happen to interact with specialized cells in your eyes called photoreceptors. You have three types of cone cells, each sensitive to different ranges of wavelengths, roughly corresponding to what we call red, green, and blue light. But here's the remarkable part. The experience of redness or blueness exists nowhere in the physics of light. It exists only in the way your brain interprets the relative activation of these different cone cells. And your brain does extraordinary things with this limited information. It creates millions of distinct color experiences from just three types of input. It adjusts for different lighting conditions so that a white sheet of paper looks white to you whether you're in the yellow light of a candle or the blue light of the sky, even though the actual wavelengths reaching your eyes are completely different in each case. This phenomenon, called color constancy, is just one example of how your brain doesn't show you the world as it is, but rather creates a useful interpretation of it. Your brain cares more about consistency and meaning than about accuracy. It would be overwhelming and not particularly useful if the color of everything appeared to change every time the lighting changed, so your brain performs incredibly sophisticated calculations completely outside of your conscious awareness to maintain a stable perception of color. And consider this quietly wonderful fact. The way you experience color might be completely different from how the person next to you experiences it. We have no way of knowing whether your experience of red is the same as mine. We can both look at a strawberry and agree that it's red. We can both consistently identify red things, but the actual subjective experience, what philosophers call the quale of redness, might be utterly different for each of us. Your reality and mine might be painted in completely different palettes, and we would never know. Now let's drift our attention to something even more fundamental, your sense of having a body, of being a physical self in space. Right now, even with your eyes closed, you know where your arms are, where your legs are. You have a sense of your body's position and boundaries. This too is a construction of your brain, built from multiple streams of sensory information, proprioceptors in your muscles and joints, telling you about position and movement, touch receptors in your skin, defining your boundaries, vestibular organs in your inner ear, providing information about balance and orientation. Your brain takes all of these inputs and constructs what neuroscientists call a body schema, an internal model of your body. And this model can be remarkably flexible. When you use a tool regularly, like a tennis racket or a pencil, your brain actually incorporates it into your body schema. The tool becomes, in a very real neurological sense, an extension of your body. This is why experienced drivers can feel the edges of their car when parking, why a blind person can sense the world through their cane. But sometimes this construction process reveals itself in unusual ways. People who have lost limbs often experience phantom sensations, feeling their missing arm or leg, as if it were still there. This happens because the brain's model of the body doesn't immediately update to match the physical reality. The neural networks that represented that limb are still there, still active, still creating sensations, even though the limb itself is gone. Even more remarkably, scientists have induced out of body experiences in laboratory settings by manipulating the sensory information the brain receives, by showing people video of themselves from behind while tapping their back in synchrony with what they see. Researchers can create the compelling illusion that consciousness is floating outside the body. This shows us that even our most basic sense of being located inside our body is a construction that can be disrupted or manipulated. Let me share something particularly fascinating about how your brain constructs visual reality. You might think that vision works like a camera. Light comes in through the lens of your eye, hits the retina like film or a digital sensor, and creates an image that your brain then sees. But this is far from how it actually works. First, the image on your retina is upside down and reversed, with a big blank spot where your optic nerve connects, and blood vessels creating shadows across it. Your brain flips the image, fills in the blind spot, and erases the blood vessel shadows, all without you ever being aware of it. But it goes much deeper than these corrections. Your eyes are constantly making tiny movements called saccades, jumping from point to point several times per second. During each saccade, you're essentially blind. The image is just a blur, yet you experience a stable, continuous visual world. Your brain suppresses the blurred images during eye movements and stitches together the clear images from the brief pauses between saccades, creating the illusion of smooth, continuous vision. And here's something truly extraordinary. Only a tiny portion of your visual field, about the size of your thumbnail at arm's length, is actually in sharp focus at any given moment. This is the fovea, the small area of your retina with the highest concentration of photoreceptors. Everything else in your visual field is actually quite blurry, but your brain creates the illusion of clarity across your entire visual field by rapidly moving your eyes around and building up a detailed model of the scene. Your brain is also constantly making predictions about what you're going to see. In fact, there are more neural connections going from your brain's visual processing areas back to your eyes than there are going from your eyes to your brain. Your brain is constantly telling your eyes what to expect to see, and these predictions strongly influence what you actually perceive. This is why optical illusions work. They exploit the predictions and assumptions your brain makes about the visual world. Think about this. When you look at a photograph, you see a three-dimensional scene, even though the photo is completely flat. Your brain automatically interprets shadows, perspective, and relative sizes to construct a sense of depth that doesn't actually exist on the flat surface. This happens so automatically that it's nearly impossible to see a photograph as what it really is, just patterns of color on a flat surface. The same predictive process happens with faces. Your brain has specialized regions dedicated to processing faces, and these regions are so eager to find faces that they'll see them in clouds, in the bark of trees, in the front of cars, anywhere there's a vague suggestion of two eyes and a mouth. This phenomenon, called pareidolia, shows us how actively your brain is trying to impose meaningful patterns on the sensory information it receives. Now, let's explore something even more profound, your experience of time. Right now, as you listen to my voice, you have a sense of the present moment, a feeling that there's a now that's different from a moment ago and different from a moment to come. But this too is a construction of your brain, and a rather mysterious one at that. Consider this. It takes time for sensory information to reach your brain and be processed. Light from a scene takes a few milliseconds to trigger responses in your retina, then dozens more milliseconds for those signals to reach your visual cortex. Sound takes even longer. It moves much slower than light, and the processing pathway is complex. Touch signals from your toes take noticeably longer to reach your brain than touch signals from your face. So here's the puzzle. If all this sensory information is arriving at different times, how do you experience a coherent now? When you watch someone speak, their lip movements and their voice seem perfectly synchronized, even though the visual and auditory information are arriving at your brain at different times. When you stub your toe, you see your foot hit the object and feel the pain as simultaneous events, even though the visual information arrives much faster than the pain signal traveling up from your toe. Your brain solves this problem by creating a buffer, a brief window of time during which it collects sensory information before deciding what happened now. It timestamps events not when the signals arrive at the brain, but when it estimates they happened in the world, then presents them to your consciousness as simultaneous if they fall within the same window. This is why, in certain circumstances, you can experience things out of order. Brain's timestamping system can be fooled. Scientists have demonstrated this with something called the color phi phenomenon. They flash a red dot on one side of a screen, then a green dot on the other side. If the timing is right, you don't see two separate dots. You see a single dot moving from one position to the other, changing color halfway through. But here's the remarkable thing. You perceive the dot changing color before it reaches the position where the green dot appears. Your brain somehow knows the dot is going to be green before the green dot has even been shown. This can only happen if your brain is buffering the sensory information and constructing your conscious experience after the fact, not in real time. Your sense of the flow of time, the feeling that time is passing at a particular rate, is also a construction that can vary dramatically. When you're bored, time seems to crawl. When you're engaged in something you enjoy, hours can pass in what feels like minutes. In moments of extreme danger, people often report that time seems to slow down, that they have what feels like endless time to react. This subjective nature of time perception shows us that our experience of temporal flow isn't a direct perception of some absolute time in the universe. It's created by our brains based on how much attention we're paying, how much memory we're forming, how aroused our nervous system is. Children experience time as passing more slowly than adults, partly because more of their experiences are novel, requiring more attention and creating more memories. As we age and more of our experiences become routine, less memory is formed and time seems to accelerate. Your brain even constructs your experience of cause and effect. When you decide to move your hand and then see it move, you experience the decision as causing the movement. But brain scanning studies have shown that the neural activity that initiates the movement begins several hundred milliseconds before you're consciously aware of deciding to move. Your brain has already started the action before you decide to do it, then constructs the experience of conscious will after the fact. This doesn't mean free will doesn't exist. That's a much more complex philosophical question. But it does show us that even our sense of being the author of our actions is at least partially a construction of our brain. The story our brain tells us about why we do what we do might be quite different from what's actually happening in our neural networks. Let's drift now into the realm of memory, because memory is perhaps where the constructive nature of our reality becomes most apparent. You might think of memory like a recording, a faithful reproduction of past events that you can replay. But memory is nothing like this. Every time you remember something, you're not retrieving a stored file. You're reconstructing the event from scattered pieces of information distributed across your brain. And here's the truly remarkable part. Each time you remember something, you change it. The act of remembering is also an act of reimagining, and the newly reconstructed memory is then restored, replacing the original. This is why our memories can drift over time, why two people can remember the same event completely differently, why we can even develop vivid memories of things that never happened. Scientists have demonstrated this malleability of memory in numerous ways. They've successfully implanted false memories in people memories of getting lost in a shopping mall as a child, of taking a hot air balloon ride, of committing a crime. These false memories can be just as vivid, just as detailed, just as emotionally compelling as real memories. The brain constructs them using the same neural machinery, combining elements of real experiences, imagination, and suggestion into something that feels absolutely real. Your brain is constantly updating and revising your memories to maintain a coherent narrative of your life. It smooths over inconsistencies, fills in gaps, and adjusts details to fit with your current understanding of yourself and the world. This is why, when you look back on your past, it often seems like there was a clear trajectory leading to where you are now, even though at the time everything felt uncertain and chaotic. Your brain has revised the story to make sense from your current perspective. Even your most vivid, most confident memories are constructions. Studies of flashbulb memories, Those incredibly vivid memories of significant events, like where you were when you heard about a major news event, show that they change over time, just like regular memories, even though people remain highly confident in their accuracy. The vividness and confidence don't indicate accuracy, they just indicate that the brain has marked this constructed memory as important. This constructive nature of memory serves important functions. It allows us to learn from experience by extracting patterns and generalizations rather than just storing raw data. It lets us imagine future scenarios by recombining elements of past experiences. It helps us maintain a coherent sense of self despite the constant changes we undergo throughout our lives. But it also means that the past you remember is not the past as it was, but the past as your brain has reconstructed it to be. Now, let's consider something that might seem more solid, more reliable than memory furniture, your perception of the present moment, the immediate world around you. Surely what you're experiencing right now is real, immediate, unmediated. But even this present moment experience is thoroughly constructed. Your brain receives an overwhelming amount of sensory information every second, millions of bits of data from your eyes, ears, skin, nose, tongue, internal organs. It would be impossible to consciously process all of this information, so your brain filters it, selecting what's important and discarding the rest. This filtering happens based on your expectations, your current goals, your past experiences, your emotional state. This is why you can suddenly notice a sound that's been there all along once someone points it out to you. The sound waves were reaching your ears the whole time, but your brain had classified them as unimportant and filtered them out of your conscious experience. This is why when you learn a new word, you suddenly seem to encounter it everywhere. It was always there, but now your brain has marked it as significant and allows it into consciousness. Your brain is also constantly filling in missing information based on context and expectation. When you look at a scene, you can't actually see everything at once in detail, but your brain creates the illusion of a complete, detailed visual field. When someone speaks in a noisy environment, you might miss many of the actual sounds, but your brain fills in what it expects to hear based on context. This filling in happens so automatically that you're usually completely unaware of it. The brain's construction of reality becomes particularly evident in cases where it goes awry. In Charles Bonnet syndrome, people with vision loss sometimes experience vivid visual hallucinations, seeing people, animals, or patterns that aren't there. This happens because the visual areas of the brain, deprived of input from the eyes, begin generating their own activity, creating visual experiences from nothing but neural noise. In conditions like schizophrenia, the brain's reality construction mechanisms can produce voices, visions, and beliefs that seem absolutely real to the person experiencing them. This shows us that the difference between hallucination and normal perception might be smaller than we think. In both cases, the brain is constructing an experience. The main difference is whether that construction corresponds to something in the external world. Even in typical healthy brains, we all experience mild hallucinations regularly. Have you ever felt your phone vibrate in your pocket when it didn't? Heard someone call your name when no one did? Seen movement in your peripheral vision that turned out to be nothing? These are all examples of your brain's predictive machinery generating experiences based on expectation rather than actual sensory input. Dreams are perhaps the most dramatic example of your brain's ability to construct reality. Every night when you enter REM sleep, your brain creates entire worlds complete with sights, sounds, emotions, and narratives. In dreams, you can experience flying, talking with deceased loved ones, being in impossible places. Your brain generates all of this from nothing but its own activity, creating experiences that can feel completely real while you're in them. What's particularly fascinating about dreams is that the parts of your brain responsible for critical thinking and logic are less active during REM sleep, which is why dream scenarios that would seem absurd when awake feel perfectly normal while dreaming. This shows us that our ability to distinguish real from not real depends on specific brain processes that can be turned up or down. Lucid dreaming, where people become aware they're dreaming while still in the dream, offers a unique window into the brain's construction of reality. Lucid dreamers can consciously influence the dream world, changing scenes, summoning objects or people, defying physics. This demonstrates that the same brain mechanisms that construct our waking reality can, under different conditions, construct entirely different realities. Let's drift our attention now to something perhaps even more fundamental: your sense of self, your feeling of being a unified, continuous person. This, too, is a construction of your brain, and it's more fragile than you might think. Your brain creates your sense of self by binding together various streams of information and memories, sensations, thoughts, emotions into a coherent narrative. It creates the feeling that there's a you who experiences all these things, a central observer sitting somewhere behind your eyes watching the movie of your life. But neuroscience has found no such central observer in the brain. There's no single place where everything comes together, no CEO neuron making decisions. Instead, your sense of self emerges from the coordinated activity of many different brain regions, each contributing different aspects of selfhood: bodily awareness, autobiographical memory, emotional responses, social identity, and so on. This constructed nature of the self becomes apparent in certain neurological conditions. In dissociative identity disorder, the brain constructs multiple distinct selves, each with their own memories, preferences, and behaviors. In depersonalization disorder, people feel detached from themselves, as if they're observing their own life from outside. In certain types of dementia, the constructed self begins to unravel as the brain regions that maintain it deteriorate. Even in healthy brains, the self is remarkably fluid. Have you noticed how differently you feel and behave in different contexts? With family versus with friends, at work versus at home, speaking your native language versus a foreign one. These aren't just superficial changes in behavior. Brain scanning shows that different neural networks are active in different social contexts. In a very real sense, you're a slightly different person in each situation. Your brain is also constantly revising your sense of self to maintain coherence. When you behave in a way that contradicts your self image, your brain often adjusts your memory of the event or your interpretation of it, rather than updating your self concept. This is why people can engage in behaviors they explicitly oppose, else care helping someone while believing they're selfish, or being cruel while believing they're kind. The brain works hard to maintain a consistent narrative of self, even when it requires some creative editing of reality. The construction of self extends even to your sense of having free will and making choices. When you decide between chocolate and vanilla ice cream, it feels like you are making a free choice. But brain scans show that the neural activity predicting which choice you'll make occurs several seconds before you're consciously aware of having decided. Your brain has already chosen and then constructs the experience of you having made the choice. This doesn't necessarily mean free will is an illusion. The relationship between brain activity and conscious will is still hotly debated among philosophers and neuroscientists. But it does show us that our experience of making decisions, like everything else about our experience, is a construction of our brain rather than a direct perception of some process. Now, let's explore how your brain constructs your emotional reality. You might think that emotions are straightforward reactions to events. Something good happens and you feel happy. Something threatens you and you feel afraid. But emotions, too, are constructions of your brain, and they're far more complex and interesting than simple reactions. Your brain constructs emotions by combining several ingredients: the physical sensations in your body, the context you're in, your past experiences, your conceptual knowledge about emotions, and your predictions about what you should be feeling. The same physical state, say arousal with a racing heart and sweaty palms, can be constructed as excitement if you're about to go on a roller coaster, fear if you're walking down a dark alley, or attraction if you're with someone you find appealing. This constructed nature of emotions has been demonstrated in fascinating experiments. In one famous study, people who had just crossed a scary suspension bridge were more likely to feel attracted to someone they met immediately after than people who crossed a stable bridge. Their brains interpreted the physical arousal from fear as attraction because of the social context. Your brain's construction of emotions is also deeply influenced by the emotion concepts available in your culture and language. Some languages have words for emotions that don't exist in English, like the Portuguese saudade, a deep emotional state of longing for something or someone that is absent, or the Japanese ame, the pleasure of being able to depend on someone's benevolence. People who speak these languages can experience these emotions more readily and distinctly because they have concepts for them. This is a profound idea. The emotions you're capable of experiencing are shaped by the emotion concepts you've learned. Your brain can only construct emotions that it has patterns for. This is why developing a richer emotional vocabulary can literally expand the range of emotions you can experience. It's also why different cultures can have genuinely different emotional realities, not just different expressions of the same underlying emotions, but actually different emotions. Your brain also constructs your experience of other people's emotions. When you look at someone's face and see that they're angry or sad or happy, you're not directly perceiving their emotion. You're observing facial movements, body posture, vocal tone, and context, and your brain is using these cues to construct what you think they're feeling. This construction is influenced by your own emotional experiences, your cultural background, and your relationship with the person. This is why emotional misunderstandings are so common. Your brain's construction of what someone else is feeling might be quite different from what they're actually experiencing. And because this construction happens automatically and feels like direct perception, you might be absolutely certain you know what they're feeling when you're actually quite wrong. The brain's construction of reality extends to our social world in profound ways. Your perception of other people, their personalities, their intentions, their trustworthiness, is not a direct reading of who they are, but a construction based on limited information filtered through your own experiences and biases. When you meet someone new, your brain immediately begins constructing a model of who they are, often based on surprisingly little information: the way they dress, their accent, their facial features, their initial behavior. Your brain uses all of these cues to rapidly construct a sense of their personality, often filling in vast amounts of detail based on stereotypes and past experiences with people who seemed similar. These initial constructions can be remarkably persistent. First impressions really do matter because once your brain has constructed a model of someone, it tends to interpret new information in ways that confirm that model rather than revise it. If you've decided someone is untrustworthy, you're more likely to notice and remember their suspicious behaviors while overlooking or forgetting their trustworthy ones. Your brain even constructs your understanding of yourself through the imagined perspectives of others. When you think about how you appear to other people, you're running a simulation in your brain, constructing what you think their construction of you might be. This hall of mirrors, your construction of their construction of you, Mia, profoundly influences your behavior and self concept. The social reality your brain constructs can be so powerful that it affects your physical health. Studies have shown that people who feel socially isolated have increased inflammation, weakened immune systems, and higher risk of various diseases. The brain's construction of loneliness triggers real physiological changes, showing us that constructed reality can have very real consequences. Let's consider now how language shapes the reality your brain constructs. You might think of language as simply describing reality, but it actually plays a crucial role in constructing it. The words and concepts available to you shape what you can perceive, think about, and experience. For example, some languages have multiple words for what English speakers call blue, distinguishing between light blue and dark blue as completely different colors, the way English distinguishes between red and pink. Speakers of these languages are actually faster at distinguishing between light and dark blue shades than English speakers because their brains have been trained to construct these as distinct categories rather than variations of the same color. The Paraham people of the Amazon have no words for exact numbers, only terms for few and many. When tested, they have difficulty with precise counting tasks that are trivial for people from numerate cultures. Their reality doesn't include the concept of exact quantity in the way ours does. Language even affects how you construct spatial reality. English speakers tend to think of time as flowing from left to right, matching their writing direction. Hebrew speakers, who write from right to left, show the opposite pattern. Mandarin speakers, who use vertical metaphors for time, up for earlier, down for later, are more likely to think of time as flowing vertically. Your internal dialogue, the constant stream of language in your mind, is continuously shaping your construction of reality. The way you describe situations to yourself influences how you experience them. If you tell yourself a situation is a disaster, your brain constructs it as more catastrophic than if you call it a challenge. This isn't just positive thinking, it's about how linguistic framing literally changes the reality your brain creates. Now, let's explore something that might seem abstract, but is actually fundamental to how your brain constructs reality: prediction. Your brain is, above all, a prediction machine. It's constantly generating predictions about what's going to happen next, and these predictions profoundly shape what you perceive and experience. This predictive process happens at every level, from basic sensory processing to complex decision making. When you're listening to music, your brain is predicting what notes will come next. When you're having a conversation, it's predicting what words the other person will say. When you're walking, it's predicting how the ground will feel under your next step. These predictions aren't conscious, they happen automatically and continuously. And here's the crucial part: your brain doesn't wait to see if its predictions are correct before constructing your experience. It constructs your experience based on its predictions, then adjusts if the sensory information doesn't match. This is why unexpected things can take a moment to register. If you're expecting to see a friend and a stranger appears instead, there's often a brief moment of confusion as your brain updates its construction of reality. If you take a sip of what you think is orange juice, but it's actually milk, the taste seems wrong, not because there's anything wrong with the milk, but because your brain had constructed an expectation of orange juice flavor. Your brain's predictions are based on your lifetime of experiences, which is why experts in a field can see things that novices miss. A chess master's brain predicts possible moves and patterns that a beginner's brain doesn't. An experienced doctor's brain predicts likely diagnoses from symptoms that might seem unrelated to others. Their brains are literally constructing a different reality from the same sensory information. This predictive construction of reality has profound implications. It means that what you've experienced in the past shapes what you're capable of experiencing in the future. If you've never experienced snow, your brain can't fully construct the reality of a snowy day, even if someone describes it to you. If you've never tasted durian, no amount of description can make your brain construct that unique flavor experience. It also means that your expectations powerfully influence your reality. Placebo effects, where people experience real improvements from fake treatments, occur because the brain's prediction of improvement actually constructs experiences of improvement. Nocebo effects, where people experience negative effects from harmless substances they believe are harmful, work the same way. The brain's predictions become self fulfilling prophecies. Your brain's predictive constructions can even override strong sensory information. In the rubber hand illusion, people watch a rubber hand being stroked while their real hand, hidden from view, is stroked in the same way. Within minutes, the brain begins to construct the rubber hand as part of the body. When the rubber hand is threatened with a hammer, people show stress responses as if their real hand were in danger. Let me share something particularly remarkable about how your brain constructs the passage of time and the continuity of your experience. Every night when you fall asleep, there are periods where your consciousness essentially disappears. During deep, dreamless sleep, there's no experience, no sense of time passing. Yet when you wake up, you don't feel like you've just popped into existence. Your brain constructs a sense of continuity, a feeling that you're the same person who went to sleep, even though there was a gap in your conscious experience. This construction of continuity happens on smaller scales too. When you blink, your visual experience is interrupted for about a third of a second, multiple times per minute, but you don't experience these as gaps in vision. Your brain edits them out, constructing a seamless visual experience. It even suppresses your perception of time during blinks, so the world doesn't seem to jump forward each time your eyes close. Your brain is constantly working to construct a coherent, continuous reality from fragmentary, interrupted inputs. It smooths over the gaps, fills in the missing pieces, and presents you with an experience that feels complete and unbroken. This is such a fundamental part of how your brain works that you're usually completely unaware it's happening. Consider what happens when you watch a movie. The film is actually a series of still images shown in rapid succession, with moments of darkness between each frame. But your brain constructs the experience of smooth, continuous motion. It takes these discrete snapshots and creates the illusion of movement, filling in what happens between frames based on its predictions about how objects move in the world. Your brain does something similar with your own movements. When you move your eyes or turn your head, the visual image should be a chaotic blur, but your brain suppresses this blurred input and constructs a stable visual world. It predicts where things will be after the movement and updates your visual experience accordingly, creating the illusion that the world stays still while you move through it. This construction of stability extends to your sense of identity over time. The cells in your body are constantly being replaced. The neurons in your brain are constantly changing their connections. Your thoughts, feelings, and memories are in constant flux, yet your brain constructs a sense of being the same continuous person throughout your life. It creates a narrative that connects your past self to your present self to your anticipated future self, even though in many ways you're quite different from who you were years or even months ago. Now let's explore how your brain constructs meaning from the chaos of sensory information it receives. Every moment, you're bombarded with a tremendous amount of raw data, photons hitting your retina, pressure waves reaching your ears, molecules binding to receptors in your nose, pressure and temperature changes on your skin. None of this has any inherent meaning. It's just physical and chemical events. But your brain transforms this meaningless data into a world full of significance. That pattern of light becomes your mother's face. Those pressure waves become your favorite song. Those molecules become the smell of fresh bread that reminds you of Sunday mornings at your grandmother's house. Your brain doesn't just detect these patterns, it constructs their meaning based on your experiences, your needs, your emotions, and your expectations. This meaning making process is so fundamental that your brain does it even when there's no meaning to be found. When you look at clouds, you might see faces or animals. When you hear random noise, you might detect voices or music. Your brain is constantly trying to construct meaningful patterns from whatever input it receives, because throughout our evolutionary history, detecting patterns, even when they weren't really there, was safer than missing them. The meaning your brain constructs can vary dramatically based on context. The same facial expression can be constructed as concentration or anger, depending on what the person is doing. The same physical sensation can be constructed as pleasant or unpleasant, depending on your expectations. The same sound can be music or noise, depending on your cultural background and current mood. Your brain even constructs the boundaries between objects, deciding where one thing ends and another begins. When you look at a tree, your brain constructs it as a single entity, separate from the ground and sky, even though there's no actual line in nature marking these boundaries. The roots blend gradually into soil. The leaves move continuously with the air. The boundaries your brain creates are useful constructions, not inherent properties of the world. This becomes particularly interesting when you consider how differently various cultures construct boundaries. Some languages have single words for what English considers multiple objects, and multiple words for what English considers a single object. These linguistic differences correlate with differences in how quickly people can identify and remember objects, showing that the conceptual boundaries our brains construct actually shape our perception. Your brain's construction of reality is also profoundly influenced by your current goals and needs. When you're hungry, your brain becomes more likely to construct ambiguous images as food. When you're thinking about buying a particular car, you suddenly seem to see that model everywhere, not because there are actually more of them, but because your brain is now constructing them as significant rather than filtering them out as background. This goal directed construction of reality helps explain why different people can experience the same situation so differently. A geologist, a painter, and a rock climber looking at the same cliff face will literally see different things. The geologist's brain constructs a story of geological time and processes. The painter's brain constructs relationships of light, shadow, and color. The climber's brain constructs roots and handholds. Each brain is creating a different reality from the same sensory input. Your emotional state also powerfully shapes the reality your brain constructs. When you're anxious, ambiguous situations are more likely to be constructed as threatening. When you're sad, your brain more readily constructs memories of other sad times, creating a reality that seems full of sorrow. When you're in love, your brain constructs your beloved as more beautiful, their voice as more musical, their touch as more electric than other people might perceive. This emotional coloring of reality isn't just a subjective overlay that actually changes what you perceive. Studies have shown that people literally see hill slopes as steeper when they're tired or carrying a heavy backpack. Spiders actually look bigger to people who are afraid of them. Objects appear closer when they're desired and farther away when they're disgusting. Your brain constructs the physical properties of the world differently based on your internal state. Let's drift now into the fascinating realm of attention and how it shapes your constructed reality. At any given moment, your brain is receiving far more information than you could possibly process consciously, so it selects what to attend to and what to ignore, and this selection process fundamentally shapes your experience. Attention isn't just about focusing on something else. It's about your brain enhancing the processing of attended information while suppressing everything else. When you focus on someone's voice at a noisy party, your brain isn't just turning up the volume on their voice. It's actively predicting what they're likely to say next and using those predictions to separate their speech from the background noise. Your brain can only maintain a few items in conscious attention at once. This limitation means that your constructed reality is always partial, always incomplete. Right now, as you listen to my voice, there are countless things happening around you that you're not aware of. The feeling of your tongue in your mouth, the sound of your breathing, the sensation of your clothes against your skin. These experiences only enter your reality when attention is directed to them. This selective attention can create dramatic blind spots in your constructed reality. In the famous invisible gorilla experiment, people watching a video of basketball players passing a ball often completely fail to notice a person in a gorilla suit walking through the scene. Their brains, focused on counting passes, simply don't construct the gorilla as part of their reality, even though the visual information is clearly there. Your brain also constructs different realities depending on whether you're using focused or diffuse attention. When you're intensely focused on a task, your brain constructs a reality with a narrow, detailed center and a vague periphery. When you're in a more relaxed, diffuse state, like when you're daydreaming or just waking up, your brain constructs a reality that's less detailed but more open to unexpected connections and insights. This is why solutions to problems often come when you're not actively thinking about them. Your brain, in its diffuse mode, is constructing different patterns and connections than it does in focused mode. The reality of the problem literally looks different, allowing new solutions to emerge. Sleep provides a particularly fascinating window into how your brain constructs reality. During different stages of sleep, your brain creates dramatically different realities. In light sleep, it maintains some connection to the external world, constructing a reality where outside sounds can be incorporated into dreams. In deep sleep, it constructs almost no experienced reality at all. In REM sleep, it constructs elaborate dream worlds that can feel completely real while you're in them. Dreams show us just how powerful your brain's reality construction machinery is. In dreams, your brain creates entire worlds without any sensory input. It generates people, places, conversations, emotions, entire experiences that exist nowhere but in the patterns of neural activity. And while you're dreaming, your brain usually constructs these experiences as completely real and rational, only recognizing their strangeness after you wake up. What's particularly interesting about dreams is that they often violate the rules that govern waking reality construction. People can transform into other people. You can be in multiple places at once. Time can flow backwards. This shows us that the consistent, logical reality you experience while awake is actively constructed by your brain. It's not just a passive reflection of the world. The boundary between sleeping and waking reality construction isn't always clear. In hypnagogic hallucinations, which occur as you're falling asleep, your brain might construct voices, images, or sensations that seem completely real. In sleep paralysis, your brain can construct terrifying presences in the room while you're conscious but unable to move. These experiences show us how thin the line is between normal reality construction and what we call hallucination. Your brain's construction of reality continues even in altered states of consciousness. Meditation, for instance, can dramatically change how your brain constructs experience. Advanced meditators report experiences of boundlessness, of time stopping, of the self dissolving. Brain scans show that meditation actually does change patterns of neural activity, particularly in regions associated with self processing and the construction of boundaries between self and world. Psychedelic substances provide another window into the flexibility of reality construction. These substances don't add anything to the brain, they simply change the patterns of neural activity. Yet they can produce profound alterations in the construction of reality. Walls might breathe, colors might have sounds. The boundary between self and world might dissolve, time might become meaningless. These experiences reveal that the stable, bounded, linear reality you normally experience is just one possible construction your brain can create. Even without meditation or substances, your brain naturally varies its reality construction throughout the day. In the morning, it might construct a reality that feels fresh and full of possibility. In the afternoon, it might construct one that feels heavy and demanding. In the evening, it might construct one that feels soft and dreamlike. These aren't just mood changes, They're actual differences in how your brain processes information and constructs experience. Your brain's construction of reality is also influenced by your beliefs and worldview. If you believe the world is fundamentally dangerous, your brain will be more likely to construct ambiguous situations as threatening. If you believe people are basically good, your brain will be more likely to construct their ambiguous behaviors as well intentioned. These beliefs act like filters, shaping how your brain interprets and constructs meaning from sensory information. This influence of belief on perception has been demonstrated in numerous studies. People who believe in paranormal phenomena are more likely to perceive patterns in random noise, to experience strange sensations as supernatural events. This isn't because they're making things up. Their brains are literally constructing different realities from the same inputs based on their belief systems. Cultural worldviews shape reality construction in profound ways. In cultures that emphasize interdependence, people's brains literally construct the self differently, with less sharp boundaries between self and others. In cultures with different concepts of time, people's brains construct temporal experience differently. These aren't just different interpretations of the same reality, they're different constructed realities. Your brain even constructs your sense of what's possible and impossible. Optical illusions work because they violate the assumptions your brain makes about how the world works. Magic tricks fool you because they contradict your brain's predictions about cause and effect. These experiences can be unsettling because they reveal that your sense of what's real and possible is itself a construction that can be challenged. Let me share something particularly profound about pain and pleasure, because these experiences might seem like the most direct, unmediated aspects of reality. Surely, when you feel pain, you're directly experiencing tissue damage, and when you feel pleasure, you're directly experiencing something good for you. But even these seemingly basic experiences are constructions of your brain. Pain isn't just the detection of tissue damage. It's your brain's constructed experience based on many factors. The sensory signals from your body, yes, but also your expectations, your past experiences, your current emotional state, the meaning you assign to the sensation, and your beliefs about what's happening to your body. This is why the same injury can produce different amounts of pain in different contexts. Soldiers in battle often report feeling little pain from serious wounds that would be agonizing in civilian life. People experience more pain from injections they believe will hurt than from ones they expect to be painless. The pain isn't just in your head in a dismissive sense. It's a real experience constructed by your brain based on multiple inputs, not just tissue damage. Placebos can produce real pain relief because they change your brain's construction of the pain experience. Brain imaging shows that placebos actually reduce activity in brain regions associated with pain processing. Your brain, expecting relief, constructs less pain. This isn't weakness or gullibility. It's the fundamental nature of how your brain creates your experienced reality. Pleasure, too, is a construction. The same wine tastes better when you believe it's expensive. The same food is more enjoyable when it's beautifully presented. The same touch feels different depending on who's doing the touching and what you believe their intentions are. Your brain constructs pleasure not just from sensory input, but from context, expectation, and meaning. Your brain even constructs your experience of effort and fatigue. That feeling of exhaustion when you exercise isn't just your muscles running out of energy, it's your brain's construction based on multiple factors, including your expectations, your motivation, your past experiences, and yes, the state of your body. Elite athletes can push through levels of physical stress that would feel impossible to others, not just because their bodies are stronger, but because their brains construct the experience of effort differently. This construction of physical experience extends to your sense of hunger and satiation. Your brain decides when you feel hungry based not just on your body's energy needs, but on the time of day, the sight and smell of food, your emotional state, your habits, and your beliefs about eating. People feel hungrier when they believe they've eaten a light meal than when they believe they've eaten a heavy one, even when the meals are identical. Now, as we near the end of our journey tonight, let's consider the profound implications of everything we've explored. If your brain constructs your reality, if everything you experience is a creation of neural activity rather than a direct perception of the world, what does this mean for your life? First, it means that your reality is uniquely yours. No one else experiences exactly the world you do. Your constructed reality is shaped by your unique history, your particular brain, your individual blend of experiences and expectations. This can be isolating. We can never fully share our reality with another person, but it can also be liberating, which your reality is your own creation, and to some extent, it can be changed. Understanding that your brain constructs your reality can help you hold your perceptions and beliefs more lightly. That person who annoyed you, your brain constructed them as annoying based on limited information and your own state of mind. That situation that seemed hopeless, your brain constructed it as hopeless based on its predictions, which might be wrong. That limitation you believe you have, it might be just a construction that can be revised. This doesn't mean you can simply think your way into a different reality. Your brain's constructions are based on real constraints, the laws of physics, the needs of your body, the realities of your social world. But within these constraints, there's more flexibility than you might imagine. By changing your attention, your expectations, your beliefs, and your habits of thought, you can literally change the reality your brain constructs. Meditation, therapy, education, new experiences, these all work in part by changing how your brain constructs reality. They provide new patterns, new predictions, new ways of interpreting sensory information. They can help your brain construct a reality with less anxiety, more joy, broader possibilities, deeper connections. Understanding the constructed nature of reality can also foster compassion, both for yourself and others. Everyone is living in a brain constructed reality shaped by their experiences, their culture, their biology. The person who sees the world completely differently from you isn't necessarily wrong or stubborn. Their brain is literally constructing a different reality. Your own limitations and struggles make more sense when you understand that your brain can only construct realities based on the patterns it has learned. This knowledge can also help you appreciate the remarkable nature of consciousness itself. Every moment of your experience is a miraculous construction, a world built from nothing but electrochemical signals in a 3-pound organ. The colors you see, the sounds you hear, the emotions you feel, the thoughts you think, all of it is the product of your brain's extraordinary ability to transform meaningless physical events into meaningful experience. As you lie there listening to my voice, Or perhaps you've already drifted off to sleep. Your brain continues its endless work of construction. Even in sleep, even in dreams, it's creating realities, processing information, updating its models of the world. Tomorrow, when you wake, it will seamlessly construct another day of experience for you, another chapter in the ongoing story of your life. And perhaps, knowing what you now know about how your brain constructs reality, you might notice things you haven't noticed before. You might catch your brain in the act of filling in missing information or predicting what comes next. You might recognize when your expectations are shaping your perceptions. You might appreciate the constructed nature of experiences you've always taken for granted. Or perhaps you'll forget all of this, and that's perfectly fine too. Your brain will continue its work regardless, constructing your reality moment by moment, creating the world you experience from the raw materials of sensory input and neural activity. It's been doing this your entire life, and it will continue doing it as long as you live. The reality your brain constructs is no less real for being a construction. Your experiences, your emotions, your relationships, they're all real to you. And that's what matters. The love you feel is real. The beauty you perceive is real. The meaning you find is real. They're real because your brain makes them real, creates them from the interaction between your neural activity and the world around you. As we come to the end of our exploration tonight, I want to thank you for joining me on this journey into the extraordinary machinery of consciousness. Whether you're still awake, hanging on every word, or whether you've drifted off into sleep, letting your brain construct dream realities, you've been part of this shared experience, this collective wondering at the nature of our own minds. Wherever you are in the world, whatever time it is for you, whatever reality your brain is constructing right at this moment, I hope you found something interesting, something soothing, something worth contemplating in our exploration tonight. And remember, the next time you experience something masked, anything at all, you might take a moment to marvel at the incredible process happening inside your head, the constant creative, extraordinary work of your brain constructing the reality you inhabit. Thank you for letting me be part of your constructed reality tonight. Thank you for lending me your attention, that precious resource that shapes what becomes real for you. If you enjoyed our journey and would like to explore more wonders of science together, please consider subscribing to the channel. And if you're comfortable sharing, I'd love to know in the comments where in the world you're listening from, what time it is in your reality as you hear these words. May your brain construct beautiful realities for you in your dreams tonight. May you wake tomorrow to a world full of wonder and possibility, and may you carry with you the knowledge that reality itself is more flexible, more mysterious, more extraordinary than we usually imagine. This has been Sleep About Science. I'm your host, your companion in wonder, your friend in the quiet hours. Until next time, when we'll explore another facet of the remarkable universe we inhabit, sleep well, dream richly, and remember, feel reality is what your brain makes it. Good night, or good morning, or good afternoon, wherever and whenever you are. Sweet dreams.